I finally told my parents the truth about my golden child brother and why I won't cover for him anymore. Now they're threatening to disown me. Okay, Reddit. Strap in, because this is a long one, and I feel like my chest is going to explode. My hands are literally shaking as I type this, partly from adrenaline, partly from residual rage, and partly from this gut-wrenching feeling that I might have just detonated a bomb that vaporized my entire family structure. Maybe it needed vaporizing. I don't know anymore. All I know is that the silence from them right now is louder than all the screaming that came before it. It started, as it often does, with a phone call from my mother 3 days ago. Not a casual "how are you?" call. Oh no. Those are rare birds in my family aviary. This was the tone. The one that signals turbulence ahead, brace for impact, your emotional support animal, that's me, apparently, is required on deck immediately. "Alex, darling," she began, her voice already laced with that high-pitched, faux casual tremor that means she's about to ask for something impossible. "How are things? Busy week?" Small talk. The anesthetic before the surgery. I braced myself. "It's okay, Mom. Just getting through it." "What's up?" Cutting to the chase usually saves about 5 minutes of excruciatingly pleasant interrogation about my work schedule, my significant other, and whether I've eaten enough vegetables lately. "Well," she sighed, a dramatic, world-weary sound that could rival any stage actress. "It's about Nathan." Of course, it was about Nathan. My younger brother. My parents' golden boy, the sun around which their entire universe seemed to revolve, despite the fact that his orbit was increasingly erratic and prone to crashing into things. Expensive things. Important things. Like, say, other people's cars. Or his own career prospects. Or my savings account. "What's he done now?" I asked, keeping my voice deliberately flat. I learned long ago that showing any emotion, positive or negative, just fuels the fire. Annoyance gets labeled jealousy, concern gets twisted into interference, and sympathy gets exploited as an open wallet. Neutrality is my shield. "He hasn't done anything, Alex," Mom snapped, the facade dropping instantly. "It's not his fault. This company. They're restructuring. Completely unfair. They just let him go. No warning. Can you believe it?" I could, actually. Nathan had been complaining about his job for months, hinting about missed deadlines and personality clashes with his boss. Nathan's definition of a personality clash usually meant someone expected him to show up on time and do the work he was paid for. He'd been fired from 2 previous jobs in the last 5 years under similar clouds of unfairness. "Okay," I said slowly. "That's tough. What's his plan?" "Plan?" Mom scoffed, as if the idea was ludicrous. "He needs support right now, Alex. He's devastated. And frankly, we're worried sick. He was relying on that paycheck for everything." Here it comes, I thought. The ask. "His rent is due next week," she continued, her voice dropping conspiratorially, as if landlords were part of the vast conspiracy against poor, misunderstood Nathan. "And his car payment. Well, you know how vital his car is for him finding new work." "Right," I said. My own car, a sensible 10-year-old sedan, suddenly felt very judged. Nathan drove a flashy SUV he absolutely couldn't afford even with his job, a purchase my parents had encouraged because it projected success. "We were thinking," Mom said, the royal we meaning her and my dad had already decided this and I was merely being informed of my role, "that maybe you could. Just help him out? Just this once? Tide him over? Just this once." The 4 most dangerous words in my family lexicon. They were invariably followed by another "just this once," and another, stretching into a tapestry of financial rescues, emotional interventions, and logistical nightmares, all courtesy of me, the eternally reliable, eternally invisible older sibling. This wasn't about just rent and a car payment, though I knew it was at least that. Nathan lived large. There would be credit card bills, probably some ill-advised online subscriptions, maybe even another short-term loan from a dubious source. The tide him over amount would likely be in the thousands. Thousands I didn't have just lying around. Thousands I was meticulously saving for a down payment on a tiny condo, my one tangible goal in a life that often felt like it was lived in service of everyone else's emergencies. I took a deep breath. This was it. I'd been rehearsing this conversation in my head for years, every time I wrote a check I couldn't afford, every time I canceled my own plans to deal with his latest drama, every time I swallowed my resentment and smiled politely at family gatherings while Nathan regaled everyone with embellished stories of his near successes. "Mom," I said, my voice firmer than I expected. "I can't." Silence. Not the awkward kind. The heavy, shocked kind. Like I'd just confessed to robbing a bank. What do you mean, you can't? Her voice spiked. Alex, this is your brother. He's in trouble. I know who he is, Mom. And I know he's in trouble. He's always in trouble. And I can't keep fixing it for him. I won't. Won't? The word came out like a poisoned dart. What's gotten into you? This isn't about fixing anything, it's about family helping family. You know your father and I would help if we could, but things are tight right now. Ah yes, things were always tight for them when it came to bailing Nathan out directly, though never too tight for lavish vacations or expensive gifts for Nathan on birthdays and holidays. Their role was chief strategists and guilt deployers, mine was the foot soldier with the bank account. For years, my dad, a man who prides himself on his business acumen, would suddenly become fiscally helpless when Nathan needed cash, deferring to my mother's emotional appeals directed squarely at me. Things are tight for me too, Mom, I said, trying to keep the tremor out of my voice. I'm saving for a down payment. I've told you this. A down payment? She sounded genuinely bewildered, as if I just announced I was saving up to colonize Mars. Alex, this is your brother's livelihood we're talking about. A house can wait. Family comes first. My future comes first, Mom. For once, I said, the words tasting strange and revolutionary on my tongue. I've helped Nathan more times than I can count. I've paid his rent before. I co-signed for that disastrous apartment lease he broke. I gave him money for car repairs that probably went somewhere else entirely. I spent hours editing his resume last time he got fired. I covered for him with you and Dad about why he really lost that job at Coulson Tech. That last one landed. A direct hit. There was a sharp intake of breath on the other end. What? What are you talking about? She stammered. Coulson Tech. 2 jobs ago. Nathan hadn't been restructured. He'd been fired for cause. Specifically, for expense report fraud. Not huge amounts, but enough, coupled with his already slipping performance, to get him walked out the door. He'd spun a sob story to Mom and Dad about office politics and a jealous boss. He'd begged me, literally crying, not to tell them the truth, swearing he'd learned his lesson and just needed a fresh start without their disappointment hanging over him. And like a fool, blinded by some lingering sense of sibling duty and maybe a shred of pity, I'd kept his secret. I'd nodded along while Mom and Dad raged about the unfairness of it all and praised Nathan for his resilience. I'd even lent him money then, too, for the transition. You know what I'm talking about, Mom, I said, the dam inside me finally starting to crack. He wasn't laid off. He was fired for padding his expenses. He lied to you. He begged me not to tell you, and I didn't. I covered for him. Just like I covered for him in college when I stopped myself. Dredging up every single instance would take hours, days even. It was a pattern, a thick, suffocating blanket woven over decades. My childhood was basically act 1 of this drama. Nathan, 2 years younger, was the charming, whirlwind kid who could do no wrong. If he broke a vase, it was an accident born of youthful exuberance. If I broke a vase, which I never did, being pedagogicky careful, it would have been carelessness, a lack of respect for nice things. Nathan got mediocre grades? He's just not academically inclined, but he has such wonderful people skills. I got straight A's? Well, Alex, you always were the studious one, delivered with a faint air of disappointment, as if I'd chosen books over charisma. He was eternally promising, always on the verge of something great that never quite materialized. A star athlete in high school, until he quit the team over a disagreement with the coach. Accepted into a decent university, only to drop out after 2 semesters because the classes were boring and interfered with his social life. Started a business venture with friends, which collapsed acrimoniously, leaving behind debt that, surprise surprise, I helped clear quietly because Mom was worried sick about the stress on Nathan. My role was fixed early on, the responsible one. The reliable one. The one who never caused trouble, who got scholarships, who worked part-time jobs through college and grad school, who built a stable career, who always remembered birthdays and anniversaries, who listened patiently to Mom's anxieties and Dad's pronouncements. I was the stage manager ensuring the star, Nathan, had everything he needed, while staying conveniently out of the spotlight myself. Any achievement of mine was met with mild approval, often immediately followed by a pivot back to Nathan. That's nice, dear. Did Nathan tell you about the amazing networking opportunity he had last night? The few times I did need help, a terrifying medical scare in my early 20s, a brutal breakup that left me reeling, the support was tepid. Concerned phone calls, yes, but also a subtle impatience, a sense that my problems were an inconvenient distraction from the main event, Nathan's ongoing saga. When I lost a job due to actual, verifiable downsizing, the reaction was, "Oh dear, well, you're resourceful, Alex. You'll land on your feet." Now, about Nathan's car insurance. There was no strategizing meeting, no guilt-laden appeals for sibling support. Just an expectation that I, the capable one, would handle it. And I did. Because that was my job. But covering up the Coulson Tech firing felt different. It wasn't just lending money or offering a shoulder to cry on. It was active deceit. It felt like I was propping up this whole false narrative that allowed Nathan to keep skating, that enabled my parents to keep pouring their hopes and anxieties into this idealized version of him that never existed. And seeing him get fired again, hearing my mother automatically leap to his defense with the same tired script. Something snapped. I don't believe you, Mom whispered into the phone, but her voice lacked conviction. Nathan wouldn't lie like that. You must be mistaken. Or maybe you're just jealous, Alex? Because he's struggling right now and you're fine? Jealous. The ultimate weapon in their arsenal. Any criticism, any boundary, any refusal on my part could be dismissed as petty jealousy of the golden child. It had shut me down effectively for years. But not this time. Jealous of what, Mom? I asked, and the bitterness I'd suppressed for so long finally flooded my voice. Jealous of him being fired again? Jealous of him being perpetually irresponsible? Jealous that he manipulates you both into thinking he's a victim every time his own choices blow up in his face? Jealous that I'm the one you call to clean up the mess, while he gets sympathy and a free pass? No, Mom. I'm not jealous. I'm angry. I'm exhausted. And I'm done. Don't you use that tone with me, Alexandra. Her voice was sharp, wounded. After everything we've done for you. What have you done for me lately, Mom? I shot back, immediately regretting the childishness of the phrase but unable to stop the words. Besides expect me to parent my own brother? Besides asking me to sacrifice my own future for his mistakes? You helped me with college tuition, yes, and I am grateful for that. But I paid you back for the loans you co-signed. I worked my ass off to get scholarships. I built my career myself. Nathan has had handout after handout, excuse after excuse, and you still treat him like he's the second coming and I'm what? The reliable bank? That's unfair. We love you both equally. Do you? I asked, the question raw and real. Because it doesn't feel equal. It feels like I'm the support beam holding up the crumbling facade of Nathan's life, and you're asking me to just keep taking the strain until I break. There was a choked sob on the other end. How can you say these things? How can you be so cruel when your brother is hurting? He's hurting because of his own actions, Mom. When does he take responsibility? When do you stop making excuses for him? Letting him fail, truly fail without me or anyone else swooping in, might be the kindest thing anyone could do for him right now. But I'm not going to be the bad guy who forces that lesson anymore by refusing to enable him. I'm just stepping back. Completely. So you're washing your hands of him? Of your family? I'm prioritizing my own life, Mom. The one I've worked incredibly hard to build despite the constant pull of this dynamic. I can't afford to help Nathan. Not financially, and honestly, not emotionally anymore. It costs too much. It will cost you your family, Alex, she said, her voice suddenly cold, chillingly calm. If you turn your back on your brother now, when he needs you most. Don't expect us to just forget this. Your father will be furious. Dad already knows, I said quietly. He called me yesterday. Tried the man-to-man, be reasonable approach. I told him the same thing. I told him about Coulson Tech too. Technically, Dad hadn't called me. I'd called him after Nathan had texted me directly with a much less polished, much more entitled demand for cash, hinting that Mom and Dad had approved the loan from me. I decided to preempt the inevitable by calling Dad first. His reaction had been interesting, less outright anger, more quiet disappointment and a series of deflections. Well, boys will be boys. Business is tough. Maybe he was under a lot of pressure. He hadn't denied the Coulson Tech thing when I brought it up, just muttered something about Nathan having explained the situation differently. But the pressure was still there. Your mother is very worried, Alex. Think about what this will do to her. Always deflecting responsibility, always framing it as my job to manage their feelings about Nathan's behavior. Mom was silent again. I could almost hear the calculations whirring in her head. Her usual tactics weren't working. Guilt hadn't worked. Anger hadn't worked. Minimization hadn't worked. The jealousy accusation had failed. What about the condo, Alex? She asked, her voice taking on a strange, almost pleading tone. You know, we were thinking. Maybe we could help a little with the down payment? If things ease up? Bribery. The last resort. And it was so transparent it was almost insulting. Offer me a fraction of what they expected me to give Nathan, as a reward for continuing to play my assigned role. No, Mom, I said, my voice flat again, devoid of anger now, just filled with a profound sadness. Thank you, but no. My condo savings are mine. I'm not touching them for Nathan. And I don't want help that comes with strings attached, especially when those strings are woven from guilt and obligation towards him. So that's it then? She asked, her voice thin. You're choosing a pile of bricks over your own brother? Over us? I'm choosing myself, Mom, I said softly. For the first time. Maybe that's the problem. You're just not used to it. You'll regret this, Alex, she whispered. You'll be alone, and you'll regret pushing us away. Maybe, I conceded. The thought sent a chill down my spine. Being alone was a genuine fear. But I'll regret not doing this more. I can't live like this anymore. I'm sorry. I ended the call. My hand was shaking so badly I almost dropped the phone. I sank onto my sofa, the silence of my apartment suddenly feeling vast and terrifying. Had I gone too far? Was she right? Would I regret burning this bridge, faulty and treacherous as it was? The next 48 hours were a masterclass in triangulation and guilt warfare. First came the text from Dad, Alexandra, your mother is distraught. I've never seen her like this. You owe her an apology. Whatever issues you have with Nathan, you do not take them out on your mother. Call her. No mention of Nathan's actions, no acknowledgement of the validity of my points. Just, Mom's upset, it's your fault, fix it. Classic. I didn't reply. Then came the email from my Aunt Carol, Mom's sister. Subject, thinking of you all. It was a novel-length guilt trip disguised as loving concern. How family is everything, how we have to stick together through thick and thin, how Nathan always had a sensitive soul and needed extra support, how my parents weren't getting any younger and didn't need this stress. Peppered with passive-aggressive barbs about how some people forget where they came from once they achieve a little success. She CC'd my mother. I archived it without replying. Then, the pièce de résistance, a voicemail from Nathan himself. Not angry. Not apologetic. But wounded. Deeply, tragically wounded. Like a kicked puppy who also happens to hold a PhD in emotional manipulation. Hey Alex, his voice began, soft and husky. Mom told me. Told me what you said. About. Everything. Long pause for dramatic effect. Look, I get it. You think I'm a screw-up. Maybe I am. Another pause. But I never thought you, Alex. I always thought you had my back. You know? Like, no matter what. Sniffle. A fucking sniffle. Guess I was wrong. It's okay. I'll figure something out. Don't worry about me. Click. Oh, I wanted to throw my phone across the room. The sheer audacity. Framing my refusal to be endlessly exploited as me betraying him. Twisting my boundary into evidence of his victimhood. It was masterful, in a sickening way. He knew exactly which buttons to push, my residual guilt, my ingrained role as the protector, the us against the world vibe he'd sometimes cultivate when he wanted something. But this time, the buttons didn't work. All I felt was a cold, hard anger. He wasn't sorry for lying about Coulson Tech. He wasn't sorry for the years of taking advantage. He was just sorry he got caught and his safety net had finally developed a spine. The silence since that voicemail, for the past day or so, has been deafening. No more calls. No more texts. No emails. It's like they've collectively decided to enact the threat, I'm being shunned. Cut off. Part of me is terrified. The conditioning runs deep. The fear of being truly alone, of losing the only family I have, even a dysfunctional one, is real. What if there's an emergency? What if someone gets sick? What if I do need them someday, and they remember this? The what-if spiral, fueled by decades of ingrained obligation. There are moments when I doubt myself intensely. Maybe I was too harsh. Maybe I should have just lent him some money, even if not the full amount. Maybe revealing the Coulson Tech secret was vindictive, unnecessary. Was I trying to punish him? Punish my parents? Or just protect myself? The lines feel blurry sometimes. My therapist, yes, there's a therapist, unsurprisingly, calls this fog, fear, obligation, guilt, and boy, am I wading through a thick patch of it right now. But underneath the fear and the guilt, there's something else growing. A sense of relief. Like I've finally put down a weight I didn't even realize I was carrying until it was gone. The constant low-level anxiety about Nathan's next crisis? It's lessened. The resentment that used to simmer just below the surface every time I interacted with my family? It's still there, but it's mixed with a strange clarity. I didn't just say no to lending money. I said no to the role they assigned me. I said no to the denial, the enabling, the collective delusion that Nathan was just perpetually unlucky instead of perpetually irresponsible. I refused to keep upholding the family myth and revealing the Coulson tech secret. Maybe it was partly punitive, but it felt necessary. It was the truth. It was the key piece of evidence that shattered the poor Nathan narrative they clung to so tightly. It forced them, maybe for the first time, to confront the reality of who they were enabling, and who they were sacrificing in the process. They might choose to ignore that reality, to double down on blaming me, but they can't unknow it. My SO has been incredible through this. Listened to me rant, held me while I cried, validated my feelings, and gently reminded me that family doesn't have to mean unconditional tolerance for toxic behavior. They never pressured me, just supported my decision, whatever it was going to be. Having that solid support outside the family vortex has been crucial. It's a reminder that I'm not actually alone, even if my biological family decides to ice me out. I spent some time yesterday looking at condo listings online. Actually letting myself imagine living in my own space, a space bought with my own hard-earned money, a space free from the obligation to house a temporarily struggling sibling or host guilt-laden family meetings. It felt good. Solid. Real. A future I'm building for myself, not one dictated by the needs and dysfunctions of others. Will they come around? I don't know. Part of me hopes so, hopes for some acknowledgement, some change. But another part suspects they'll just find another way to prop Nathan up, maybe leaning on Aunt Carol or digging into their own tight finances now that I'm off the hook. They might try to pull me back in eventually, perhaps when the next crisis hits, acting like nothing happened or offering a half-baked apology conditioned on my compliance. Nathan? I suspect he'll land on his feet somehow, as he always seems to. Maybe a girlfriend will take him in. Maybe he'll get another job and the cycle will repeat. Maybe, just maybe, hitting rock bottom without my rescue net will force some actual change. But I can't hang my own well-being on that maybe. His life is his responsibility now. Entirely. My responsibility is to myself. To heal from decades of being the family shock absorber. To build a life where my needs matter, where my boundaries are respected, where love isn't conditional on my willingness to play a role I never auditioned for. It hurts. God, it hurts in a way that feels like losing a limb. The phantom pain of where my family should be, the idealized version I always hoped for, is intense. But staying connected to the reality of what it was, that hurt more, just in a slower, soul-crushing way. This sharp, acute pain feels cleaner, somehow. Like surgery. Excruciating, but maybe, just maybe, life-saving. I keep replaying that last conversation with Mom. Her final words, "You'll regret this. You'll be alone." Maybe she's right about the regret, in some ways. I regret that it came to this. I regret the hurt caused. But being alone? I was already profoundly alone within my family, in a way that felt far more isolating than this current physical distance. At least now the solitude feels honest. So, Reddit. I've laid it all out. The whole messy, decades-long saga leading up to this explosion. I feel raw, exposed, and still incredibly shaky. But also, lighter. What do you think? Did I finally do the right thing by putting myself first and telling the hard truths, even if it fractured my family? Or was I too harsh, too unforgiving, abandoning them when they perceived a time of need? What would you have done in my situation?